There's a strange moment that happens right after you tell someone your biggest goal. You say it out loud, maybe a little casually, like it's already part of your life. I'm starting a business. I'm writing a book. I'm going to change everything this year. And they look at you, impressed, supportive, maybe even a little inspired. That's amazing. You're going to crush it. I can totally see you doing that. And for a second, it feels like you already have. Not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to soften the urgency. Enough to quiet that restless pressure that was pushing you to begin. And then something subtle happens. You don't start. Or you start, but slower than you thought you would. Less focused, less hungry. Days pass, then weeks. The idea is still there, but the energy isn't. And you can't quite explain why. Because on the surface, talking about your goals feels like the right thing to do. It feels motivating. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But it isn't. Sometimes, it's the very thing quietly killing it. I used to be exceptionally good at talking about my goals. Not just casually mentioning them, I mean performing them. I could map out entire futures in conversation. I talked about multiplying money through trading, about writing books people couldn't ignore, about building things that mattered, things that helped people, changed systems, saved lives. And I didn't just talk once. I repeated these visions to friends, to anyone who would listen. I refined them, expanded them, made them sound sharper, more real, more inevitable. And every time I spoke, I felt something. A small surge, a quiet high, like I was getting closer. But here's the part that's harder to admit. Most of the time, I never actually started. Or I started just enough to keep the story alive. Just enough to have something new to say the next time it came up. And if you're honest, you've probably felt this too. That strange gap between what you say you're going to do and what you actually follow through on. The gap isn't always obvious at first, but over time, it becomes heavier. You start noticing how many plans never turned into action, how many ideas lived only in conversation. And then, quietly, something more dangerous sets in. Doubt. Not loud, dramatic doubt. Not the kind that screams. The quiet kind. The kind that whispers, maybe you're just someone who talks.
Here's what's actually happening beneath all of this. When you talk about your goals, especially to other people, your brain doesn't treat it as neutral. The moment they validate it, admire it, or even just listen closely, your brain releases a small reward, a hit of satisfaction, a signal that says, you're on the right track. But here's the problem. That signal is supposed to come after effort, after friction, after you've done something difficult enough to earn it. Instead, you're getting it early, before the work, before the resistance, before the part that actually transforms you. So your brain, efficient as always, adjusts. It thinks, we've already made progress here. We're good. And just like that, the urgency fades. The edge softens. The discipline you were going to rely on, it has less fuel now, because some part of you already feels like you've moved forward. You haven't, but your brain doesn't know that. It just knows it got rewarded, and humans repeat what gets rewarded. This is the trap. Not laziness, not lack of ambition, a misfire of timing. You're consuming the emotional payoff of success without paying the cost, And over time, that creates a dangerous illusion. You begin to associate talking with doing, planning with progress. You become fluent in the language of success without ever building the substance of it. But there's another layer to this, and it's less about biology and more about belief. Because when you talk about your goals before you've started, you're not just sharing, you're searching. You're looking for something in other people's reactions, approval, recognition, confirmation that what you want is valid, that it makes sense, that it's worth it. Because somewhere, underneath all the clarity, there's uncertainty. And instead of sitting with that uncertainty, instead of letting it sharpen you, you try to resolve it externally. You hope someone else will look at your idea and say, yes, this matters. Go all in. But they can't, even if they want to, because most people won't fully understand what you're trying to do. Not because they're incapable, but because your vision exists in a place they haven't seen yet. Real goals, the ones that actually change something, they're inherently difficult to explain. They don't sound obvious in the beginning. They sound ambitious, unclear, sometimes even unnecessary. And if you rely on other people to validate something they can't yet see, you'll either shrink it or abandon it. Not because it was wrong, but because it wasn't recognized. And recognition feels like truth, even when it isn't. There's a reason why so many meaningful things start quietly, not announced, not broadcast, just built, in private, in obscurity, where there's no applause to lean on, no reaction to guide you, just you and the uncomfortable responsibility of deciding this matters, even if nobody else gets it yet. And then there's that voice. You know the one that shows up right before you start something important. It doesn't shout, it hesitates. Are you sure? What if this goes nowhere? What if you try and it proves something about you that you don't want to know? That voice is the reason talking feels so good, because talking temporarily silences it. When you explain your goal to someone and they respond positively, that voice steps back. For a moment, you feel certain, capable, directed. But that certainty didn't come from action. It came from reassurance. And reassurance is fragile. It fades, which is why you have to keep talking, keep explaining, keep refreshing that borrowed confidence. But there's another way to deal with that voice, not by silencing it, but by understanding it. Because that hesitation, that tension, that quiet fear of stepping into something uncertain, it's not a warning that you're on the wrong path. It's a signal that you're close to something real, something that actually requires you to change. And change always comes with discomfort. Always. If you wait for that feeling to disappear before you act, you'll wait forever. But if you move with it, something interesting happens. The voice doesn't vanish. It just loses authority. Because now it's competing with evidence. Small, quiet evidence that you're actually doing something. There's a point, and it doesn't come all at once, where you start noticing a shift. You talk less, not because you're hiding, not because you've lost excitement, but because you no longer need to talk. The work itself begins to replace the conversation. You get your validation from effort, from showing up, from pushing through something you would have avoided before. And it's different, quieter, but more stable, because it's earned. You start realizing that silence isn't empty. It's strategic. It protects your momentum. It keeps your energy directed inward, where it can actually build something, instead of dispersing it outward,
where it gets diluted into reactions and opinions. Silence becomes a kind of currency. The less you spend it on announcing what you'll do, the more you have available to actually do it. And eventually, you reach a point where results begin to speak. Not loudly, not all at once, but clearly enough that you don't feel the need to explain anymore. Because now, you're not trying to convince anyone, not even yourself. You already know. And that's the shift, from talking to doing, from seeking validation to generating it, from imagining a future and quietly, consistently building it. So, if there's something you've been saying you'll start, something that keeps coming up in conversation, try something different this time. Don't announce it. Don't explain it. Don't even frame it as a goal. Just begin. Clumsily, imperfectly, without permission. Let the uncertainty stay. Let the voice be there and move anyway. Because the moment you stop talking about your goals is often the exact moment they finally have a chance to become real.
If this conversation gave you something to think about, a new perspective, or even a small sense of clarity, then this channel is for you. Consider joining this growing community by subscribing and leave a like on the video so more people searching for answers can find these ideas too. Your support keeps these conversations alive. Until the next video, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep pondering life's journeys.